Welcome to the 2-Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one giant book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, talk about it, analyze it, have fun, discuss it, make jokes, do things related to books and reading. This season, I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books. This season, we're reading ARDOR by Vladimir Nabokov, and I'm joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox.
You sound absolutely distracted and tired and exhausted in that introduction.
What happened to the...
What's the most placid introduction you've given?
I'm like so peppy. Like, this is like the opposite of Riverdale. Like what happened to our landslide narrative?
I can tell you exactly what happened. We make fun of these two places on the show over and over and over again, and this is karma coming back to us. This is what happens when Ohio and Florida get to decide anything.
Yeah, fuck Ohio and Florida. Fuck college. Fuck all those middle states like the Dakotas and then Iowa. Fuck Iowa too.
When Arizona is the one that comes through,
yeah,
that's when you know, wow, this is things are weird. So
you're so lucky. I'm at the office and I was like, can I bring whiskey to the office? And I was like, probably not.
100 proof. I have 100 and 115 proof. I'm going to start with 100 proof. I'm going to go up from there.
I need to go to the grocery store that I'm going to just start. This isn't going to end for weeks, though.
No, I know. Didn't we literally play one time? We did a bit where we played Florida, Ohio, Florida, where we had to guess where the idiotic male behavior was coming out of. It was so hard to pick.
It's really hard.
Like if it involved frozen iguanas and snakes, like, oh, that's probably Florida. It's like, no, that was in Ohio too, apparently. If it's meth, it's like, oh man, that's kind of both of them. Gosh.
I saw this great tweet that I retweeted that was I wonder how that woman from Ducks Newburyport is doing today.
Yeah, there are not enough apple tarts that you can make bake your way out of this nonsense.
Nope, you can bake and bake.
I did see though during the pandemic,
bake and bake, and it will be okay.
I did see during the pandemic there was a mountain lion that was being predatory towards kids, like in San Francisco and stuff with the fires. Like they're all coming into the cities to eat children, apparently. So, yeah, life is imitating art.
And yeah,
no, it's wild. I feel like you ever see that scene in a movie? It's almost always a war movie where our plucky hero is getting ready to, like, he's battle hardened and he's ready to finish his first tour, and then like the captain comes in, we got new orders, we're all here for the next tour. There's just like that long empty stare, and the face hollows out. There's the cigarette is just limping in the mouth, and they're not bothering to ash, and the smoke is wisping, and you see the helicopters in the background, and they're stare. That's what I kind of feel like right now. Like, am I going to do a second tour of duty? Oh. No. Like, it's just that empty. That's what I felt like as I saw all those. It's like, this is the exact same thing that happened last election. All the same mistakes, the same mistake of a candidate, the same, like, it was like lockstep. Like, oh, let's put all our chips on Florida, and like Florida just crushes it for everything red. And it's like, oh, this is not good.
I truly believe that he won Wisconsin. He'll win enough to, like, Biden will win enough to be declared the winner, and then there will be 14 weeks of court cases and Supreme Court rulings that will end like in like a day before the inauguration.
But wait, like, just like the last bit of this, because we should talk about something else, obviously. But I already heard the president say he won, so I mean, it's kind of over, right? I mean, you can stop counting.
I mean, I finished the book. These other pages are like illegal pages. I don't know what these pages are doing, but they're just they're scraping them up,
Won, so we should just stop and like let them win. Like, that's the way things work.
Yeah, why not? No, be nice. He seems fragile, you know?
Yeah, he's not really a no means no kind of guy, so. Why when he says stop, should we stop? I don't know.
I watched the South Park pandemic special last night instead of MSNBC because it was tripping me out, and that is funny as shit. and like the bit where Trump is telling you how to like get out of trouble, or he's like, oh, all you do is, oh, maybe this was the episode right before, but either way, they call Trump and he's like, what you do is they accuse you of something, you deny it, you turn it back around on them and pretend you're the victim. He's like, it's really easy.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway,
we finished section 2.
We finished part 2, which got really buzzing. We did chapters 7 through 11, which is the last like 50 pages of part 2. And this really kind of takes off.
It was I found this part to be extremely cinematic, if that makes sense.
Ironic that you said that. So I thought that it was as cinematic as well, but I think that what I was reading it as was a commentary on the relationship between cinema and writing, and like and art as like representation in both terms of memory, in terms of artistic value for like writing, and for like the filmic sort of qualities and capitalist qualities of that. Well,
we'd be jumping ahead to get to it, but I think it's a good point to just, talk about it out of order. But I think Nabokov really does tip his hand on how he feels about cinema.
Yeah.
With how hilarious Ada's pursuits are, and how frivolous and how like just wishy-washy and ridiculous it is. Like it's so kind of trite, and like there's the jokes about she was supposed to be the 4th sister, but they cut her out of the film so much they might as well call it 3 sisters. Or when Van is like, hey, you're in the movie, there's your elbow. Yeah. Like all of our scenes got cut.
I love that it's Chekhov's 3 sisters, but like 4 sisters until they just they can revive it.
3 sisters, yeah.
It's super fun.
You're not in it.
You're not in it. Yeah, I had a really good time reading this section, especially because it does like the ending does have like some shit go down.
Super melodramatic, right?
Super melodramatic, but also super funny in like an 80s screwball comedy way.
Sure.
In a bit, like we'll get to that, but like, yeah, there's like a little 80s screwball comedy in it that's almost cinematic as well.
Sort of like Michael J. Fox, The Secret of My Success, where
that's what I was thinking of.
Really? Wow, all right.
I think Michael J. Fox is like sort of like the spirit animal of 2 Month Review, because we've used so many of his like shitty movie songs on here from the Fox season. Like,
yeah, we did that Chicka Chicka song
from Secret of My Success.
It's in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? Which is it's also in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I think.
Oh yeah, I think so.
That whole ending part.
It's like one of those 80s, late 80s, early 90s songs that just shows up and you're like, I don't know what this song doesn't exist outside of these movies.
Yeah.
You would never hear it on the radio, be like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense that you would play this chicka chicka boom 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 song ever.
Yeah, so I don't know what to make of this part just yet, because again, without knowing the book as a whole, like to me, it bifurcated isn't the right word, but it feels like it's patched together, and there's like these different modes that it goes through.
Yeah, I was trying to think if like part 1 was like artist as like the I forgot to look back at where exactly part 1 ended, but like part 1 as artist as like the Eden, and then part 2 as like the downfall.
Yeah, well, and yeah, it's getting more and more heavy-handed with the Eden. Like now it's like actually saying Eden and the branch of Eden, and like they're really but you do see well, I guess before I get to that, like, but yeah, like it was more, I don't know, kind of like pastel and rose-colored lenses, kind of a dreamy beginning, and then after they start having incest, it gets a little kind of maybe not grittier necessarily, but like the bowl of fruit starts to decay a little bit, right? And what was shown to us so in such exuberance and beauty is real, like, no, this is disgusting.
Yeah,
and it feels really disgusting. And then it kind of switched to where it started to become more sci-fi-ish, right?
Yeah.
And then here, this section is feeling very cinematic. to me. So I don't know what the different kind of modes and feelings necessarily, what it builds to as a whole, because I haven't got to the end yet. But I am noticing like these different kind of changes and shifts as we're reading it. And maybe that's why this one read really fast, and because it just felt very kind of not Hollywood, but that cinematic realism as you're reading it.
It was much more propulsive than the earlier section. Yeah. And I'm not sure why, because like the first chapter 7 is not. Chapter 7 is kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah, I mean, you get like the club scene, right, where they're going out and the soiree and the drinking, and then you have the menage a trois, and then you have the damsel running away, and then like so you're getting all of this kind of like the sins and the repercussions of the sins. Then there's that weird whole part with that we'll get to with like the talking about cinema, and then obviously the big kind of crescendo would be the father discovering the secret. It's like dun dun dun, right?
Being like, "Hey guys, you're related."
Yeah,
and they're like, "Duh fucking Like we've known that for a while." So so let's start at 7, because this is one where like chapter 7 is the first one we went through today, and it's basically all based around Kim Beauharnais. Comes with a bunch of pictures of like all the events involving like Ada and Vaughn and like their trips to the Bone Zone, and and so he has all these pictures of like all this stuff, and like essentially like blackmails Ada for $1,000, whatever currency is in this magical world, 1,000 of them, and so they kind of look through them too, and are looking through the different photos, and Vaughn's like, "You're so dumb now. Like he's not gonna like this $1,000 isn't gonna take care of it. There's gonna be lots more. There's got to be like various negatives missing. Like this is not safe. Like this isn't gonna keep us out of trouble."
That's what I never got about like film noir, where they have the detective or the it's always the PI that has the photos.
Yeah,
and they do that kind of like seedy. I'll give you the photos for the money, like, and I want the negatives too. Like that, there's that whole cliche, right? But like, if you have the negatives, you can make copies. So I don't understand, like, how do they know they have all of them? It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like,
it really doesn't.
Feel okay. You just always hang it over their head, like, "Hey, I still have them, so I want another $500." Like
exactly
months later or whatever. Yeah.
It's like everyone should do it like they do on that TV show Cheaters, where they videotape, and instead of like having the pictures to show, they go and show the person the videotape of them cheating on their spouse. Have you seen this show? It's amazing.
No, I have not seen Cheaters.
It's one of the funniest TV shows I've ever seen. The guy who runs it, so like he's a private detective, and they get hired to like see if like your spouse is cheating on you, and in the show they always are, right? Like there's no false positives in this. So they go and find them. They always videotape them, and then they have a confrontation scene in which the aggrieved party comes with him. They confront the cheating party and show them videotapes of all their bad actions, and that person flips out. And in one of the episodes, the host got stabbed.
It happens, man.
It's like
I have, even if I wanted to cheat, I have no opportunity to, because I have a 5-year-old daughter that stays with me all the time and tells on me for everything, every little thing. Like, "Hey, Daddy didn't fold the towels the way you like." Shut up, man.
I gave you ice cream.
Yeah. So if I'm going to be a cheater, I'd have to like take her to a babysitter. Like, there's no way I'm getting around any of it. Like,
you cheat with a babysitter.
Yeah, Dad took me to a babysitter so he could go cheat on you. Like, that would be the first thing where you go pick up Mom from work. That's the first thing she would say. And then I'd stab myself. Forget the host. Before any of you get a chance to do it, I'll just do it to myself. I'm good.
No worries, man. I've got this. So this is one part where I started thinking about that, how there's a relationship here between like the book versus or memory versus the film, and the book versus the film, because like this is like a concrete representation and is very cinematic, or like picturesque. Like the way that it describes each of their scenes is described as like, so for example, the first item in the Evil series had projected one of Vaughn's initial impressions of Artist Manor at an angle that differed from that of his own recollection. Its area lay between the shadow of the caliche darkening on the gravel and the white step of a pillared porch shining in the sun. Marina, with one arm still in the sleeve of the dust coat, which a footman, Price, was helping her to remove, stood brandishing her free arm in a theatrical gesture of welcome. While Ada, in her black hockey blazer, belonging really to Banda, spilled her hair over her bare knees as she flexed them and flipped back with her flowers to check his nervous sparks. Like, it's a very specific, like, boom, 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 like Nouveau Roman sort of like images of where these things are. Yeah. But that event we have already read. Like, we read that in Vaughn's description of it from a different perspective as he wrote it at the age of 90, recalling what he did back at that point in time. Yeah. And so this like sort of like the fact that it's a blackmailer, that it's like an untrustworthy blackmailer, that it's like these images are reduced. This whole book that we've read, this whole family chronicle has been reduced to like a series of photographs of these events is kind of like the Nabokov sort of like making fun of the kitschy stuff too. And of like the concrete simplicity of everything. It's
kind of brilliant if you like, well, not kind of, it is brilliant.
Yeah.
Because even like the parts where Vaughn's saying, like, how did you even get this shot? Were you like laying prone with all of the camera equipment to get in there? How do we not see you? Like, and it's basically like saying, like, when you're as a reader and you're suspending your disbelief, where is this camera, this mind camera? Where is this coming from? Just like, who is this person watching us while we're doing what we're doing? Like, this is the person, right? It's kind of puncturing the fourth wall, this section.
Yeah. Was Kim Beauharnais an actual character before this moment? You could say yes, you could say no. I agree with you.
I don't remember. I know the Kim is short for something else. It says later, but
yeah, I don't remember.
But yeah, like when you bring that up, this idea of memory and reality and cinema and film, like it's all throughout this part that we read, and yeah, it's quite brilliant the way he plays with it and their memories.
The specific part that I marked related to that too is on 406, where Ada's like, she's like, Vaughn, no more fighting. It's just love now. Don't destroy this person. Like, we've just got to be okay. It's okay. Blah blah blah. And then she says, you'll not slaughter him. He is subnormal. He is perhaps blackmailerish, but in his sordidity, there's an visceral moan of crippled art. Furthermore, this page is the only really naughty one. And let's not forget that a copperhead of 8 was also ambushed in the brush. And he says, art my foot. This is the hearse of ours, a toilet roll of the carte du tendre. I'm butchering all this. I'm sorry you showed it to me. That ape has vulgarized our own mind pictures. I will either horsewhip his eyes out or redeem our childhood by making a book of it. Artist, a family chronicle. Which obviously is the thing that happens, but it's like either violence towards that thing or like, because the images, the mind images have been denigrated through this like crass representation. The photography is like the crass version of art.
Yeah.
It shows like the everything in its sordid and most true nature without the flourishes and the other parts that make something beautiful.
Yeah.
Even if it's incest.
So like kind of an aside, and maybe it'll be of interest to some of the viewers, but when I'm teaching beginning writing, and especially for fiction, I always go back to cinematic realism. Mm-hmm. And it's, to me, like for reading, I'm not as interested in cinematic realism because, I like things that are like fractured or weird or fun or whatever. But for the most part, that's how the guy that invented film and shots, they asked him where did you come up with the ideas? And he's like, oh, Charles Dickens. Like every shot that I do is from Charles Dickens. Like that's panning, moving up and down, that kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
But I always take people back to cinematic realism, and I try to like say, if this was a movie, can you imagine like if we're just flashing back and forth and moving all over the place, how chaotic that would be for a reader to try to picture that and to glide through the scene. But it makes more sense if you do kind of maybe you're further away and you slowly pan in, and then when you get really close to somebody, then you can kind of do this close back and forth between the two people. It's like it glides you in nice and easy. And I like right here how he's kind of like this is a weird. It's like I don't know how comfortable he is with quote unquote cinematic realism, like that old way of writing books, right? Where you have to have people picture. I feel like he's kind of puncturing some holes and playing with that here a little bit.
This is weird because I don't think I noticed this until you said that. But 407, 408, and 409 are almost all just dialogue, and I don't think that happens very often.
And he's very anti-dialogue.
Yeah, and the way that Rodrigo is too.
Well, he'll get over it at some point and learn how powerful speech is. But whatever.
Hi, Rodrigo. True.
No, but yeah, this is a like, because I know he's very Nabokov was very kind of harsh on the use of dialogue, the way it's all, maybe it was like a shot at Hemingway or Steinbeck or something. I don't know, like that real simplistic modernist writing of using dialogue. But yeah, there is a lot of dialogue in this section as well. I was surprised at that.
Me too. I really like the ending part where it has like the last paragraph that isn't in dialogue, where it's talking about how all the romantically inclined handmaids who readings had consisted of Guinevere and Clara Mervago, which seems to be like Guinevere and Dr. Zhivago, adored Dawn, adored Ada, adored artists, ardors, and arbors. Their swains plucking ballads on their 7-stringed Russian lyres under the racemosa in bloom or in old rose gardens, added freshly composed lines, naive, lackadaisically, but heartfelt to cyclical folk songs. Eccentric police officers grew enamored with the glamour of incest is one of my favorite lines. But it's like as if like the people, so there's these photographs that they're blackmailing over, but that the people in the town were seeing this, and that it was like that they were into it in a way, that it was like the romantic edge of it, including the eccentric police officers who grew enamored with the glamour of incest.
No, and we've joked about that too, where like every quote unquote chambermaid or gardener knows this is going on, but these highfalutin people of power and prestige that have a powerful last name are oblivious. Yeah. Apparently, are oblivious to it, as we find out later.
Yeah, like surprisingly so.
Yeah, I thought for sure like Demon was on the up and up a little bit about it, but
apparently not. Yeah, I agree.
He really draws the line. I guess incest is like, that's where you draw the line.
Even though he was like, and there was a hinted at last week that he was like attempting to seduce his daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to 8, chapter 8. Which one is this? Is the one that had the what you're talking about, of where they go out and have their outdoor they go to the restaurant and they have their dinner, their fancy dinner and their fancy thing with Lucette, Ada, and Vaughn, and they end up in like a menage a trois, kind of.
Sort of, kind of. They get tanked.
Yeah, they get tanked. It's like 15-year-olds or whatever they are.
Isn't Vaughn trying to exploit Colette's desires for him to learn about who this betrothed person is, right? He wants to find out about the Vinelander person.
Yeah, which every time I type that or say it, like Vinelander just sounds like something from like a bad Ben Stiller movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the original name for like Leif Erikson when they went to the New World, like Newfoundland and whatnot? They called it Vineland because of the wild grapes that were in the New World, America.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is the one where like he knows that Ada is engaged, but doesn't know to whom, and wants to get that out of Lucette. And as part of that, they go to like this crazy fancy restaurant where they're like, the three of them are like together, acting like very whatever. And I wrote on the top, this is like Dynasty or the lives of the rich and famous who are perverse.
Yeah, it's keeping with Kardashians, basically.
Yeah. It's like, let's go to this fancy place. And they're like, we can do whatever we want. And like, people kind of watch them, but they're like outside of time in a weird way. Outside of judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That was an interesting one. I also was confused a bit, and I have a question for you. There's one part that I really like, but I did have a question in terms of so at this point, has Vaughn and Lucette have not had sex?
I don't think so.
I don't either. That's what I got this time. I thought they had before, but Lusette's had sex with Ada, because that was like from last week, and that's talked about here. And Ada's had sex with Vaughn, and he wants to have sex with Lucette to make this like a triangle of things. And I realize as I say that, and as I wrote it yesterday, that's part of like the A and V shape. There's something there to I'm sure someone's written about this, and when we get to the end, we'll find it. But there's something about the shape and the symbolic shape of all their names related to this in terms of their connections and non-connections of a V and an A, but also that ah sound that shows up throughout. It's in Nabokov, it's in Vladimir, it's in Ada, it's in Von, it's an artist, it's an arbor. Like I feel like that sound repeats throughout here as like some sort of like, I don't know, like not tone poem, but like it shows up so frequently and it's always has like an emphasis placed on it that I'm curious as to like what that might mean. Is it just a sound thing? Is it just like a pronunciation thing?
Maybe like I'm not a linguist or anything, but a lot of languages have the ah sound at the beginning of their alphabet, right? And it's the sound of pleasure, whether it's a meal, ah, or orgasm, ah, like it's of some sort of carnal pleasure being satiated is an ah sound. And that's kind of why I think a lot of them it's believed or hypothesized that a lot start with ah, because it's that kind of like feed me or fulfill me is the ah, right? But yeah, I don't know. And then what is the word they use for, because she ends up orgasming, right? And then freaks out and leaves. Did I catch that right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like it's, with most of Nabokov's sexuality as books, it's really uncomfortable. And so maybe I'm trying to like forget it as I read it because.
Yeah, there were so many parts of this section where I was like, this is kind of hot. And then also like
wonderful trick where he writes with such exuberance and passion about things that are like, that's the game he likes to play, I think. Obviously you see like the prime example is obviously Lolita, right? But I'm going to write the greatest love story. I'm going to make it about, pedophilia. Okay. Yeah. A lot. Appreciate you. Thanks a lot. And with this one, like, there was even that one line where he's like, he adds it up and he's like, yeah, I've slept with her probably 1,000 times. She is my world.
Yeah.
Like he figures out, I was with her at this amount of time. We had some time apart and this amount of time. I've been with her over 1,000 times and she is my world. Like Vaughn actually loves her.
Yeah.
But it's still terrible and awful and despicable. And I think that's the game he likes to play, is like the Terra, anti-Terra, the like idealized love and no, this is forbidden. You cannot do this. Like that kind of thing, right?
Yes, exactly.
And somehow I feel like Lisette's kind of trapped in the middle of it in some way, where she loves her sister and she loves Vaughn.
Yeah.
In different kind of ways, it seems, but also in the same kind of way at the same time. And she's like the fulcrum of this awful teeter-totter that they have.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's really intense. There's one great line in here that I thought was a Rodrigo line of tropes are the dreams of speech. It's like but he does get, so in the plot wise, he does get Lucette to tell him that it's Vinelander is the person. So he does get that. Did you figure out what on 417 what the code was?
Oh, I didn't look it up. No,
I couldn't find like anyone who had done it for me, and I didn't take the time to do it last night.
Perknick, that one.
Yeah.
No.
And but this is also where like suddenly you get the movie stuff starts coming in as well, and like 419 starts to become very movie-esque in terms of like the descriptions. And that's what I thought you were talking about earlier when you're talking about the cinematic aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The top sheet and quilts are tumbled at the footboard list south of the island where the newly landed eye, being like the camera, starts on its northern trip Up the younger Mrs. Veen's pried open legs, a dewdrop on russet moss eventually finds a stylistic response in the aquamarine tear on her flaming cheekbone. Another trip from the port to the interior reveals the central girl's long white left thigh. We visit souvenir stalls, Ada's red lacquered talons, which lead a man's reasonably recalcitrant, pardonably yielding wrists out of the dim east to the bright russet west, and the sparkle of her diamond necklace, which for the nonce is the most valuable. Then the aquamarines on the other side of the novelty novel lane. So it does have like a much more cinematic and like stage direction-y vibe.
Right.
Also, one of my favorite lines here was that was more aroused than is good for him or a certain type of tourist.
Yeah, no, because it almost feels like he was directing. It's like snuff isn't the right word, but like in that earlier time of pornography, there was like basic like cheese. Like, I think they called it cheesecake, right? Where it's just topless, and then there was the more like kind of taboo or risque type of stuff that gets you in a lot of trouble. And I feel like he's like seeing like he's playing with how to direct that with this taboo love affair.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I love the great synesthesia at the bottom too. Sounds have colors and colors have smells.
No, go beyond like the way he connects that. Like I thought this was perfect. Like it perfectly sums up what this book is with how interesting, thought-provoking, beautiful, and nasty all at the same time is what reading this book has been like for me. Sounds have colors. Very last line on 419. Sounds have colors. Colors have smells. The fire of Lucette's amber runs through the night of Ada's odor and ardor and stops the threshold of Van's lavender goat. 10 eager, evil, loving, long fingers belonging to two different young demons caress their helpless bed pet. Ada's loose black hair accidentally tickles the local curio she holds in her left fist, magnanimously demonstrating her acquisition, unsigned and unframed. Like the language is gorgeous and it is disgusting what it's describing, and but it's sensual at the same time. Like it reminds me of that poem, "The Lotus Eaters."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where it's they're eating of the lotus and they're like getting sleepy and there's all the S's and it's this beautiful language, but they're being taken away from what their objective is. Like I feel like when you read this, it's such beautiful, wonderful, fantastic, vivid language, and it's disgusting. And again, that's the trick of Nabokov.
Yeah, absolutely.
This thing.
It's like you really are taking this girl.
Yeah.
Hat being part of that. Yeah.
Like what a fantastic, delicious paragraph of something so abhorrent, right? Like it's so uncomfortable, and that's what that seems like. That's what he likes to do, is like with exuberance and passion and beauty, take you to the most uncomfortable places of human existence.
It's like the old. I mean, it was written in the '60s too, and like that form of postmodernism, that thread of it, of like the high and the low mixed together, the art and the porn, the all of that kind of stuff, like being mixed and not being just one or the other.
Yeah, and he's using with like the highest of high society, right? Where $1,000 is not a big deal. Here, I'll pay it off. Not a big deal.
Yeah,
yeah. Or when we see later with Demon's response of like, well, I'm not going to disinherit you. I'll curse you, right? Like,
yes, yeah, exactly. With this one, so they then split apart from Lucette, but Ada's like, oh, yep, I'm up in the tower, and he's like, I'm on my way. But it has this great Nabokovian line right in the middle that's like peak Nabokov, where he's talking to where they're like, Ada's like, you're breaking her heart, because Lucette has like this huge crush on him, and he's like, you cried over my unseemly scar, but and this is my favorite line ever. But now life is going to be nothing but love and laughter and corn and cans.
Yeah, what does the corn and cans mean?
I don't know, but I fucking love it.
Isn't that a baseball? Isn't that a baseball scout?
Yeah, a can of corn is like a simply easy caught ball. But like, yeah, I wouldn't think of that as like being what's being referenced here. But I love like the idea of like it's nothing but love and laughter and corn and cans.
Mm-hmm.
So funny.
Imagine like someone of his tastes and of his like upbringing, like in wealth and whatever, to come to America and be with like quote unquote simple folks. It must have been very amusing to see like casseroles, or baked potatoes, or like little simple pleasures that normal people like you or I or and it's just like, oh, how interesting, a can of corn. Never thought you would like can it like corn and put it into a can, huh? Usually, it's picnics with caviar and truffled pheasant and blah blah blah.
Oh my god! Yes, absolutely. And then chapter 9 to move along. Chapter 9 is the one that I had that was the very much movie versus literature that we were alluding to earlier.
Yes,
this one is like fraught with that. I mean, it starts with the description of the movie that they're filming earlier. That was based on Mademoiselle Lavier's whatever book. Has become The Young and the Doomed, and this is, I just have to read this because this is brilliant. So her book had been Infants Maudits or whatever it was, like I forget what it was, the they had another name for it earlier, like the horrible children, the something children, whatever.
The Doomed, right?
Yeah. And so this is the description of her book. She had 2 adolescents in a French castle poison their widowed mother, who had seduced a young neighbor, the lover of one of her twins. The author had made many concessions to the freedom of the times and the foul fancy of scriptwriters, but both she and the leading lady disavowed the final result of multiple tamperings with the plot that had now become the story of a murder in Arizona, the victim being a widower about to marry an alcoholic prostitute whom Marina quite sensibly refused to impersonate. Like, those 2 plots have zero to do with one another.
So what's the quote unquote what's the elevator pitch for that book?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of even confusing because it's the victim was a widower who's about to marry an alcoholic prostitute, so he's the one who gets killed. Murder in Arizona, yeah, it's like it's not anything. It's like a bad true crime.
That's like the Wikipedia thing you sent me, where it was talking about Chuck Norris went under hypnosis. One of the children said Chuck Norris was one of the people that had abused them. It involved fire balloons.
I read that last night and was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So it was not really. No, it's a bad thing. I take that back. It's bad. But the McMartin preschool trials that we're talking about, a sexual abuse case from the 1980s in which like there are allegations that were made against someone. And then it just went haywire into like the satanic panic, like hypnosis and like sexual abuse that's not possible sort of claims, including bizarre accusations, which included that the children who were claiming at this preschool that they were sexually abused claimed that they saw witches fly, they traveled in a hot air balloon, and were taken through tunnels. When shown a series of photographs by Danny Davis, the lawyer, one child identified actor Chuck Norris as one of the abusers. Some of the abuse was alleged to have occurred in secret tunnels beneath the school. Several excavations turned up evidence of old buildings on the site and other debris from before the school was built, but no evidence of secret chambers. There were claims of orgies at car washes and airports, of children being flushed down toilets to secret rooms where they were abused, then cleaned up and presented back to their parents. Like,
this is the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 7.
Yeah, it's like such a wild thing. And I during that time, like almost the exact same time, I was in high school plays, over the summer, the summer plays while I was in junior high, led by a high school teacher, high school teacher who was accused of molesting like multiple kids during those plays. And it's never been clear whether that was like a thing that happened or if it was like one of these where like was like one thing that became like, oh yeah, everyone like, and the amount of people who like were part of this was like too big to have been part of it, sort of thing. It's like capturing the Freedman's moment.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we got off on that, but yeah, that was like, yeah, that's like the two.
But back on track with this whole cinematic thing, one of my favorite parts on this was on page 426 at the top of it. And to me, it just showed how much Ada has changed. Because when we first meet her, like she's on track to be like one of the like foremost botanists, right? like her understanding and the way she talks about
not near insects.
Or sorry, is it entomology? I forget what
yeah.
Just like knowing about nature and knowing the names of things and like how lofty and impressive and crazy smart she is. And then she is seduced by Vaughn, and this is what she's turned into at this point on 426. At 14, Ada had firmly believed she would shoot in stardom she would shoot to stardom and there, with a grand bang, break into prismatic tears of triumph. She studied at special schools, unsuccessful but gifted actress, as well as Stanislavski, no relation, not a stage name, gave her private lessons of drama, despair, hope. Her debut was a quiet little disaster. Her subsequent appearances were sincerely applauded only by close friends. One's first love, she told Vam, is one's first standing ovation, and that is what makes great artists.
Yep, she's gone a long way down.
That's a giant spiral down from where she was that first summer they met in Artists.
Yeah. This is a
tragic.
Absolutely, and this section does set up one of the big like Nabokovian sort of tropes, where at the bottom of 426 I had marked where in real life we are creatures of chance in an absolute void unless we be artists ourselves naturally. And this is a very Nabokovian bit of like if you can create, like, you're stuck at you're like to the whims of fate or the whims of a chance that are happening, but if you're an artist you can take control of that situation a little bit and create something out of it. And like that sets himself up against in this chapter of like the written word versus that cinematic Hollywood tawdry version, where she's no longer a sensitive, beautiful young woman that has all this promise, but is just like an actress to be used as a prop and discarded.
Well, like you're
cut out.
Yeah, you're no longer a subject, you're an object at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because you're through the lens and you're being viewed, right? And it's also about what kind of adoration you can garner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. This section I thought I could go through another time and like really pull shit out of, because it has like there's a lot packed in here. I have to say that one of my favorite Nabokovian names of the day is on 430 Dangle Leaf, the ballet master. Dangle Leaf. I don't know why that cracks me up, but it's like Mr. Dangle.
There was some racist name that he had in here too.
Oh really? I might have missed.
It was a pun on something Asian, and it had a racist Asian name. I didn't mark it down. It's super distasteful though. But yeah, I mean, he's playing with a lot of names and being very funny, for sure. But one was just like, oh God, that's a little too far there, buddy.
Yeah. So here's here's specifically as the written word thing too, on 425. For him, the written word existed only in its abstract purity, in its unrepeatable appeal to an equally ideal mind. It belongs solely to its creator and could not be spoken or enacted by a mime, as Ada insisted, without letting the deadly stab of another's mind destroy the artist in the very lair of his art. A written play was intrinsically superior to the best performance of it, even if directed by the author himself. So that's sort of like where you're like, yeah, the anti-filmic, anti-production aspect of the written word.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So yeah, so we get through that, and then we get to 10, where this is the one where they get caught. Yep. So in this scene, they're banging in Cordula's apartment that he now owns, and they like have been sneaking around there. Like, I think Ada's supposed to be in Hollywood or out west somewhere. They're like Hollywood / El Paso, because El Paso seems like a natural, conduit to Hollywood.
Sure.
If you like yards that are made of stone, I think that's where she's supposed to be, but instead she's in Manhattan hiding out with Vaughn, and they're like sort of sneaking around, and they don't want to get caught by anyone, and they see someone they actually know and sort of bluff their way through it, and are hoping that she wouldn't tell Demon if he shows up, but he's not supposed to show up until the end of March. or until March, and then he comes in the middle of February and pops in and is like
total chance.
Everything
chance because right. He's only there because he went in crazy fast because of Uncle Dan falling ill. Right,
yeah,
he's gonna die. So he rushes to get there, and then he sees like this really nice breakfast cart. He's like, "Oh, it's like something my son would do. Oh, I'll have a cup of coffee. I'll just follow this up, or whatever." Like it's just.
And he's like, "Is Von still living here?" He's like, "Yeah, he's been with his woman friend the whole time, this whole winter." And so so Demon goes in there, all doped up too. Like that's not that he's like
Cordula. You got some Cordula, nice.
Like fucking lit.
Go
drug.
He's trying to get his dad out of there. Dad, go, leave. Just leave. Hey, I'm gonna just sit a little bit longer here and talk.
This is one of those funniest
sitcom bosom buddies. We're back to bosom buddies again.
Yeah.
Or Secret of My Success, where someone's changing clothes and hiding and being something different.
This is the screwball comedy part to me. So that you get this coincidence, which is very much like, the coincidence of humor that comes with those kind of movies. And then you get like how Dan dies is because he's obsessed with Hronis Bosch's art and sees some detail and it drives him insane and he flees the house and has an attack. And so Demon's explaining this and Demon's like hopped up on like shitloads amount of coke, has like a page and a half of just like rambling shit. And then suddenly it's like, was he perhaps under the influence of some bright Chilean drug? That torrent was simply unstoppable, a crazy spectrum, a talking palate. And he like goes on, and then he's like, Van's like, no, you can't come. You need to go. You need to get out of here. And he's like, brrr. And then like, of course, then Otto walks out of the room.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Yeah. And so they're caught.
Like maybe I'm reading into things too much. Was it just me, or did it really? When Demon showed up and was in the rain and walking across the street and whatnot, it was so reminiscent of when the devil kills that first person in Master Margarita.
Oh yeah, you're right.
The streetcar and that whole scene and the decapitation and how chance that was or whatever, how crazy it was. It felt really, like eerily reminiscent of that setup as he was. Like gonna wave to the person but wasn't wearing the hat, and like all the little like tiny details that create the grand thing to happen. I felt like it was building up to that in this scene.
Yeah, that's very true. I hadn't thought about that. It's absolutely true.
But I'm by no means a Russian lit person, so I'm gonna stay in my lane. That's not for me to say. Yeah,
it's I think that counts though, but yeah, I agree with you.
I've read 2 Russian books and they were both written by Tom Clancy. So.
Oh man.
That's the best I got.
And then we get to the last chapter where he's like, guys, when did this start? And Von's like, oh, back in 84. And this was where that line was. Yeah. I suppose I have had her about 1,000 times. She is my whole life. And then there's like this random, like, sometime I'll tell you about the Black Miller, not now. And we get this whole long thing. And it's like this is a moment where it's like Demon's an assassin. Like he and Von are bad people. When shit doesn't go their way, they don't just like take it. They just go and annihilate that person. Like Von fucks it up last part. Because that's the end of part 1 is when he goes to kill those people. Mm-hmm. And gets stabbed and gets shot. But in this, Demon like takes someone out and like takes out other people. A reference there too. So he's like more of a like even more criminal and more like demonic than just than his name and just the general sex thing.
But he's also been described like almost literally as like a black hat twirling mustache monocle person, like just shows up just like smoke and brimstone, right? Like just evil, like evil purpose. And again, it's that weird trick that Nabokov likes to do. You feel sorry for Demon when the bombshell hits, and then Von is sitting there stroking his finger on the desk, watching his father just fall apart before his eyes at what his son has become.
Yeah,
like. It may not be that impactful, but it's a moment where it's like, wow, the way he shows like how hollow his tanned face is, and he starts crumbling and the tears, and like it's that wonderful trick of, hey, here's this awful person, and I'm going to humanize him for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It
was the exact opposite of how it was when they were at that dinner.
Yeah.
Where it humanized, we talked about that, where it humanized Vaughn the whole time. Like, you feel sorry for Vaughn at that dinner where he showed up. And now they show up again, and you feel sorry for the father. So it's really, again, like an interesting trickery and playfulness by Nabokov here.
And it's very Anna-Karenina-like too, because that book works off this reversal constantly, and that sort of back and forth. I love the part where it's like, where Vaughn's like, dude, don't worry, Dad, don't lose your temper. Nature as I formed you once has been kind to me. We can afford to be careless in every sense of the word because he's impotent and can't get her pregnant. And he's like, no, it's cool, man. Like, nothing's gonna happen. And then Demon's like, I'm not concerned with semantics or semination, which I thought was a great line.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I can't disinherit you. I can't do enough, but like I can curse you, and kicks him out, and he leaves. Vaughn leaves.
Yep. Part 3. Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I wonder. Part 3 is much shorter, and part 4 and 5 are incredibly short. So like this all speeds up towards the end, it seems.
Yeah.
I wondered about that when we first started reading it, that each part is shorter than the last, the same way that like Book of Anna was. That might create a sense of like an artificial sense of speed that adds the book's tempo as well.
Maybe I'm really excited to finish this book, and I want to go back and read the first chapter again, because I remember how insanely confusing, orienting it was, and knowing the whole story, I next to positive, it's going to be a stroke of brilliance, and I'm doing everything in my power not to go back and read it, because I want to be surprised by it, by everything that's in there and coded in there. But I'm going to wait. I'm not going to do it. But
it's going to make total sense now. Yeah. I have my favorite quote is on page 445 of this week. So I'll just go with this one right now. My favorite quote of the week is, nothing happened, or perhaps everything happened, and his destiny simply forked at that instant, as it probably does sometimes at night, especially in a strange bed, at stages of great happiness or great desolation, when we happen to die in our sleep, but continue our normal existence with no perceptible break in the fake serialization on the following neatly prepared morning, with a spurious past discreetly but firmly attached behind. This is all about like maybe things split.
Yeah.
He tries to shoot himself, but it doesn't work. And like maybe that moment, like he did die, but continues on, and referencing it within the dreams, I really like. It reminds me of the opening scene of Slacker.
Wow,
the
90s today. Oh no, we were 80s. We were doing 80s. And we went to
80s.
Yeah.
Remember those simple times when the right people won elections in the 90s? And
did they?
Well,
Michael Dukakis. Oh, that's 80.
88.
That's 88. Never mind. Somewhere there's a Subaru Outback with no wheels, with weeds growing over it. It has a Michael Dukakis bumper sticker on it. You know,
sure.
Somewhere in Minneapolis. I already mine. It was on that one that's on 419 and mostly on page 420. About the sounds have colors, colors have smells. The fire of Lucette's amber runs through the night. That whole was just wow.
Yeah, that is a great line. A lot of great lines in here this week. So next week we're doing chapters 1 through 6, which is pages 447 through 501.
Okay, got it.
So just over 50 pages again, and 6 chapters. And then we'll finish up chapter 3, then do parts 4 and 5. So we only have 3 weeks left of the book itself. Bonus episode in which we read everyone's recommended criticism. So if you have any like essays or articles or things about ARDOR that you think we should consider, please send them along. You can email me, which is easy to find. You can leave them as comments on the post about this podcast on 3%, or you could leave it on the YouTube video because I see all those comments too, because they all come through. So just send them, do whatever. I have a couple articles so far and a chapter from a book, but I really don't know. I haven't done that much research. So if there's something that someone likes, please send it along if you think it'll be useful. So I don't have anything else to add, except I hope by next week, all the election stuff is done and good.
I'm moving somewhere where don't have to worry about this. I'm going to Puerto Rico.
Man. Oh, and New York still hasn't legalized weed.
How?
Fuck this state. They've shown us the world screens. They've shown us